Welcome to the world of data center innovation with the iMissions podcast and discovering the people leading our industry revolution. My name is Ronan Constance, and today I'm joined by John Booth, Managing Director at Cal 1380 and CTO at National Data Center Academy. John reached out to the iMasons Incubator platform for help. Together we're discovering John's newest venture and exploring ways in which our community can help. So let's get right into it. Hi, John.
Good morning, Roman.
Well, first of all, it's a real pleasure to have you here as somebody who has actually reached out to our incubator platform, one of the first ones to seek out some of the help. And you and I have had a number of chats over the last few months over your venture, and we were really keen to actually showcase what you're up to and see if our community can help. So. For those of for the listeners that actually don't know you, do you mind actually introducing yourself? And
yeah, so my name's John Booth. I'm the Managing Director of Carbon Free IT Limited and the Chief Technical Officer of the National Data Center Academy. We've been operating in the energy efficiency and sustainability space for data centers since 2010. There is a story about how I came to kind of decide to move career from straightforward systems engineering at my previous company to becoming my own boss, as it were. But maybe that's best had done over a beer somewhere. But the new venture is quite exciting, actually, and it links back to the work that we've been doing for the last 14 years on energy efficiency and sustainability.
That's fantastic, and I think there's no better time than now to actually start going into it. Do you want to give us an introduction to the venture?
Yeah, well, actually, I was just thinking about that during our prep call, and I've actually been involved with the iMason since almost the inception back in 2016. And there was a scholarship fund, and we did try and apply to get some money for that, and we have had success of that. And they basically, the previous guys at Ronick said, basically, once you've got the site built, come get back in touch. But obviously, there's been a lot of changes with the iMasons and how it's structured and how it delivers its programs over the last 8 years or so. But our new venture is actually to build a actual working data center, but exclusively use it for training and R&D purposes. So we're currently just about ready to sign the lease on it, and we're just going through some of the work that we need to do to get the design sorted. And part of our remit to talk to you guys is to basically ask the supply chain a number of things which we can cover later on. But yeah, we've been thinking about this for a while now. In fact, I think the first time we looked at it in anger was in about 2015, 2016, and we were going to have the use of a former data center complex in Birmingham. Unfortunately, that fell through, and then we put the company into dormancy for about 3 or 4 years, and then obviously pandemic hit, which kind of restricted the ability to do real life, face-to-face and practical training in any format, to be honest. And then we found a site that they were kind of, because of the pandemic, they had decided to basically release some of their space, and we looked at that. And we got a provisional design ready for that. That unfortunately fell through as well. And that was actually kind of during the tail ends of pandemic. So the lockdown periods and the alert levels were changing all the time. And I think the owners of the building didn't think that the venture was viable with the kind of government regulations and stuff. So we kind of put that on hold. And now we found another site, and we were quite a long way down that. That was actually a former, a former workplace recovery site. Unfortunately, with the rise of AI and the lack of data center space in the UK, that seems to have kind of meant that they can probably get more money from selling it as colo space than they could from training academy. So we had to reset again, and we've now found a suitable location in the Midlands. It's easy to get to. I'll cover that later on. And we are now currently, as I said, we're just about to sign the lease next week. And there's a lot of work going in the background with Schedule B works, which is kind of like amendments to the existing building. And we've been reached out to a few design guys to get some provisional designs done. They're all complete now. We're seeking some seed funding from some of the government agencies. We're working with Innovate UK Business Growth on that, and they have actually, I've got to say, they've been very helpful in pointing us towards the direction of funding elements. And we are now, I've got a call with Digital Catapult tomorrow to discuss their involvement in our application.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, this is a full program, isn't it? One of the things that you've been talking about is really making it a training center for technicians, I assume. Can you take us through what that looks like? Who are the people you're targeting? The sort of programs and training that you want to run there?
Well, so we aim to be a multifunctional training center for all disciplines within the data center and telco environments. So to kick that off, we're going to have what we know as the EU Code of Conduct room. So basically, this is a room that's going to be set up like an old kind of legacy server room. So one that maybe have different temperature ranges. Sometimes we use the storage, hasn't got any blanking panels, and it is what I would consider to be quite poorly run. And my personal experience would say that would probably equate to about 50% of UK server room space, not necessarily data center space, but definitely server room space. So these are just those little IT cabinets and rooms that are in almost every building you care to think of. They have been designed with a kind of 20th century mentality. They're probably overcooled. They're not managed well. There's stuff like that. So we're going to have one room that's built like that, and then the training course takes you through the code of conduct, best practices, and then the delegates get the chance to actually implement the best practices in our training facility. We'll be monitoring it all, so we'll know exactly how much energy is being used and exactly what the PUE is and all of the ISO 30134 metrics that we can calculate. And then at the end of the these 5-day course, the delegates should have made that room as energy efficient as it's possible to make it, given the parameters that we'll set for them. And we want to run that as a kind of competition. So we want different teams of people to come in. We'll reset the facility to its awful state, and we want companies to come in and improve. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So as you know, Roman, I do a lot of assessments for data centers to the CEDA assessment and EN 5600 and some of those sort of things. I'm a certified data center audit professional, as well as a sustainability professional. And the one thing I've noticed on all of the assessments that I've made is that some of the technicians on the ground, they don't really have an understanding of the basic principles of data center engineering. So they don't really necessarily understand the airflow. They don't necessarily actually understand that, putting cable in the back of the rack can impede airflow and cause hotspots. So this kind of facility is to identify that, make basically what does good look like? Well, good will look like the data center building that we've done after they've done the course. So we really do need to be really pushing the boundaries for energy efficient sustainability. The industry, although it's in a massive growth state at the moment, and there's a lot of talk about AI. I mean, you were at the conference last week in Cannes. Everybody is bullish. Everybody thinks that there's this growth phase is never going to end. Well, that's going to defy normal economic principles. There is a bust coming, I think, but I've been expecting it for a while. It hasn't come out yet. We've got skill shortages, we've got supply chain shortages, we've got power shortages. And one of the best ways to kind of do more with less is to actually look at what you've got, your existing legacy estates, and improve them. And I think, that's what we're here to do, is to actually improve what we've got, and to recover some of our stranded capacity in terms of network and power. And then hopefully we won't need to build as many facilities as is projected, although that seems to be on a different track, and we can talk about that at some point in the future. So we've got the training element. We're also going to have what we're calling the sandbox. So this is to explain the different principles of different types of cooling that is possible. So we're going to have a hot aisle contained, we're going to have a cold aisle contained, we're going to have an in-road cooling, and we're going to have an immersed compute solution as well in that area, and we'll use that for training as well. The second phase is the showcase. So we want to actually have a kind of permanent trade show at our site, which we will get customers to locate their equipment on there. They will be able to bring their customers in to see it in a real life working environment, and seal the deal, as it were. And we've discussed this with some of the supply chain previously. We know that if you go to a big trade event over 3 days, you might meet 500 or 600 people, and your contact time with them about your product is very limited. And so this was a natural kind of extension to the normal trade show sales cycle by inviting them to the showcase, see the academy, look at the product actually in situ and operating, and then they can do the deal. And then the third element is the research and development side of things. So what we want to do is hold that, both the EU Code of Conduct room and the sandbox, to be used for research purposes. So somebody can come in, use our facility and perform their R&D.
So it is a real life example of what people should do in practice. You really want them to actually come into to experience firsthand what it should look like on their own sites. Is that the goal there?
I think that's part of it. But the other thing to think of is, that actually at the moment, training for data centers personnel is usually what I would call kind of further education. So most of the people that are involved in data centers have come in from another industry. So they may well be already time-served electricians or mechanical engineers or IT people, and they're kind of cross-referenced, they're moving across into the data center industry. So their previous employment, what they were doing may not have been as mission critical as the data centers are. So there's a different mindset when you're operating in mission critical data centers. One of the things that we have noticed is that due to contractual obligations with customers and their service level agreements, some of the, what I would call more radical best practices are very rarely implemented in data centers, because effectively FUD, so fear, uncertainty and doubt. And we can put those to rest. So we can actually look at those best practices. If the best practice is whack it up to 27 degrees, we can whack it up to 27 degrees. And as long as you're managing the airflow within the facility, you shouldn't see any degradation in performance or energy consumption. In fact, your energy consumption can go down, and your PUE will come down as well. But in the target market that we're looking at are people that are not necessarily the people that go to the trade events, and they're not necessarily people that go to the big conferences. We're looking at kind of your average Joe that's working in a small company, and the data center or the server room is part of his remit. He might have inherited it. He's taken the view, if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. It's not his core business. He might be an IT guy. So we want to get those type of guys up to speed with the latest thinking and concepts. And the reason for that is that some of the research projects that we've been involved with have identified that actually data centers and server room estates are very much like an iceberg. So the top of the iceberg, the stuff you can see, is the stuff that is mentioned in the BBC reports. It's mentioned in the climate change agreements. It's mentioned in the legislation. that actually the bulk of IT servicing rooms that are called and powered are below the waterline. Over 85% of them are below the iceberg waterline. And those guys are the ones that we don't see, right? Now, I've seen them in the past because obviously I used to work for a company and I would go and visit these smaller, 20 rack, 50 rack server rooms that fall under the legislative radar. And the people there work for big organizations and they probably don't even consider themselves to be data center people. They probably first and foremost consider themselves to be IT people that just happens to have this room that they look after, and then facilities management for the building are their main contact point. So there is a separation there between our target market and what's currently on the ground, and this is something we'll be addressing through probably webinars, our contacts in Tech UK. The Growth Hub, Innovation Hub, the local authorities, etc., that we'll be talking to. And we're planning to attend a lot of local Midlands, Sustainability West Midlands events and build up this kind of cross-sector discipline. At the moment, there's a big district heat thing going on in the Midlands, and obviously using the waste heat from data centres is also a bit of a flavour of the month at the moment. We're currently working with the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero on a project that's looking at waste heat. There's a lot of this circular economy going around, a lot of sustainability principles that are being applied. So we're going to kind of cover these and talk about that at the training centre.
That's an even bigger program that where you first presented. It looks like it's growing arms, legs, and loads of things around to cater to the whole market.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we want this to be a centre of excellence, or to be considered to be a centre of excellence. And I want in about 3 or 4 years' time, if somebody's working speaking at a conference and they speak to somebody and go, oh, what training have you had? Oh, I had some training at the NDCA. And I go, oh, right, so you know your stuff then, right? So we want this to be seen as the pinnacle of potential training. That's not to say that we're putting barriers up against the current incumbents in this market. We would love them to collaborate with us and deliver some of their courses at our facility, because I do personally think that that practical training element is sadly missing in the current courses, which are all virtual or classroom based. There is, and yes, they work during pandemic. Is it working? Will it work in the future? I know it's helpful for some global organisations to have one training course that everybody from all 3 time zones can get in and go on. But I do think that it's like having a virtual team meeting. You can't see the colour of their eyes. You don't know what they're thinking. The body language kind of signals all get mixed up. You can't do collaborative projects where you discuss things on there very easily. So part of our remit is to have a lot of breakout sessions and discussion sessions where little teams, 2 or 3, can go off and discuss the task that we've given them. And it might be simple, here's the IT stack, go and do a quick audit of it. How do you do that? And we're also thinking about having budgets and a kind of price list, so that here's a task, you need to solve that task, here are your options, here's your price list, which one are you going to do? And that needs a discussion thing. We might even have role play in there. I'm the finance director of XYZ Limited. I need you to remove 10% of my energy bill out of my data center, and I'm not giving you any budget to do it. You prove to me what you can do. And we know from the best practices that there's a lot of BAU stuff you can do to improve airflow. And then you might go, what, Mr. Finance Director, the air conditioning here is 25 years old, it leaks, it fails in the summer months. We really could do with changing it out. Okay, then, well, here's a budget. You've got 20 grand. What do you need to, you go and find out. It just so happens that the new cooling solution is going to cost you 15 grand from our price list. And then they implement that. So there is a lot of work to do on the background side of that. But, we're going to try and make this as real life as possible. And we want to give people the skills so that they can ask for the money from their guys and really have the support documentation that says, if we do this, then we're going to do that, and we will save this much money, and over the long term, it will be much better for you to do this than to do that sort of thing. So real life, proper training.
I must say, having started over 15 years ago in a data center, trying to manage airflows, and I wish I would have practical training like this. It sounds really fit for the enterprise comms rooms data centers of this world.
Yeah.
So
one of the things I'm really most
go on, John.
One of the things I'm really most excited about, and this is something that we got from our involvement with the Tech UK Data Center Council and the skills group, is disaster recovery black building training. So obviously you need to do one of these every year, right? Usually from insurance purposes or just for your own peace of mind. But it's really surprising how many companies don't do it because they're fearful. And I always say to people, well, okay, when would you like to find out that your backup systems don't work? Right? When you're doing a proper test and you have everybody in the car park to help you get it back up and running, or at 3 o'clock on a storm-ridden Sunday, where you get called out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and you need to get your system back up and running, but there's a storm going on, so it takes you 2 hours to get to your building. Everybody else who would support you during that transition, the UPS guys, your electricians, they're all going to be in the same situation. Which is your preference? And they always say, oh, well, during a formal test process. And go, well, when was the last time you did one? Oh, but we don't do those because there's a fundamental disconnect here, right?
Yeah.
So what we want to do is to be able to go, and I was talking to the power guy yesterday. So we've actually, he's writing a training course and a program where the guys will come in and will instigate a power failure on our sandbox, excuse me, and then they'll go through the process to get it back up and running. We will have UPSs and we will have a small generator looking after our site. It's not big by any stretch of the imagination. This is not we couldn't remove the training and become a data center operator overnight, but it gives just enough flavor for people to understand the basic principles and some of maybe the intermediate principles of disaster recovery and business continuity. We have our own switch panel stuff, low voltage and medium voltage gear. And if it all takes off, then we'll look for another site somewhere and build a bigger facility where maybe perhaps we can do more practical training. In fact, we've been offered some space at a recently announced project. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but what we said to them is we're going to get this one up and running first, and then we'll revisit you guys in about 18 months' time to see whether or not we've been successful and whether we need some overflow. So, and obviously you need to fund this, so because we're not paying for it.
That's actually very encouraging to hear that people are already out there supporting and finding solutions for you in provision of the growth that you're expecting. So getting to this, you're about to get started. You said that you're just about to sign a lease next week on your first location. What's the timeline on this? When can people expect to set foot on the premise and start training?
Okay. Right, so at the moment, as I said, we've got the lease going on next week. We could start delivering what I would call non-practical courses almost immediately, but we're going to do that in September. So some of the soft courses will be available in September. We still need to need to go from a provisional design to a full design, and we're just waiting for some funding to take that step. And then that will be the code of conduct room and the sandbox ready, and then we expect those construction pieces to take place in August and September, and then maybe to open in that more formally in Q1 2025. But for the moment, we've got some artist impressions, we've got some plans, so we can definitely go through it, what it will look like. It might not be able to do all of the practical elements, but they can probably do quite a few. We are going to have a an air conditioning unit there. We are going to have a couple of racks there. We are going to be able to demonstrate the airflow in more, in a more physical, touchy-feely type environment rather than on a drawing on a virtual course.
I see what you mean. So as I said in the introductions, you're actually reached out to the Incubator platform from iMasons. What I'd love for you to do is to tell us, and we've got a sensible community, pretty much spread out, loads of different skills. Who you're like, what support would you want? Who would you want to connect with, and how can they support you?
So I think there's two aspects to this. So the first one is obviously we've got our own idea on what sort of training courses we want to do and deliver. If I can just hold on a moment, I shall just look at some of our provisional courses that we've already done or we have available. I should have prepared this. Yes, we do a Green IT Fundamental course. We've got a code of conduct for energy efficiency, which is 2 days currently, but that's just the theoretical side of things. When we do the practical, we're going to add another 2.5 days to that. We do EN 5600 appreciation. We've got a building sustainable data centers course, which is 5 days. We've got a data center 101 course, which is 3 days, which is kind of entry level. And that would be used for new starters, military graduates, etc., that are moving into the industry, but also could be used for administration staff, project management staff, etc. We are developing a carbon counting for data centers course, so that's very much on the kind of the new EU registration and legislation that's coming through. And then we've got a taxonomy and code of conduct audit course, so basically using my experience in the auditing field to get people prepared to be able to prepare those taxonomy climate delegate act reports. So those are the courses we've got at the moment. But what we'd like the industry to do and the sector to do is to basically say, to tell us what they want to be trained on. So, for instance, for data center guys, it could be the power management system. It could be how to sell data center space, for instance, how to make yourself more attractive. We've got access to management training and kind of PhD stuff that some of our partners are working with, but also it could be things, something really basic, like we've got somebody installing some new air conditioning equipment. We want them to basically go through a process of how they do that in our facility. So so effectively we'll be able to train anything in the data center sector. It's just a question of the industry coming back to us and asking us telling us what they want to do, and we'll help them develop a course that's specifically around it. The other thing obviously is the equipment requests. So once the final design is done, we will have a kit list. We've already got some organizations that have promised us equipment, but any offers of anything that could be useful would be helpful. We're trying to be as sustainable and energy efficient as we can. So for instance, where there's a company close to me that does raised floor, they also do recycled raised floor. So we'll be reaching out to them and saying, can we use or can you give us or donate us some of your recycled equipment? And then we'll promote their business on the back of that. So that would be in the showcase. So for instance, all of the companies that provide us other equipment will include in the course material. We'll give them the opportunity to have a small 5-minute kind of brought to you by XYZ Cooling Limited. We were pleased to support the National Data Academy. We feel that it's a good thing to do. We're proud that our equipment is here, etc. So that's, it's a two-way thing. They give us the equipment, but then we give them a lot of kind of marketing collateral that they can then use themselves and say, we provided equipment for the National Data Academy. But also, remember, we're going to have loads of delegates coming through. And some of those delegates may not be in their conventional target market. These guys are not the ones coming to the trade shows. They're not the ones that are going to all these events. So they could open up smaller organizations that are currently probably, and I don't mean to be disparaging, but they're probably using Joe Smith Electricians Limited, and he's going out and buying an air conditioning unit off of Amazon to put it into the data center, or he's using tray work that he's buying from the local B&Q or something like that. And yeah, it might work for them, but is it being installed in the quality they want, etc. So it's just a question of getting out to different markets that they may not know of. So I think that's one of the things to do. So basically we want them to tell us what they want us to teach them, right? And I think that would be quite useful, because I think the current training courses that are available don't really cover everything that they want people to do. And then obviously the equipment request and to use the site. Yeah, obviously we want people to come and register, send their teams to our site. And we are planning to be really, really sustainable. So we're going to be using, for instance, and these are the sort of things you need to think about, Rowan. It's really crazy. Like, I remember talking to somebody a long time ago, actually in Monaco, and he said, we had a guy on a training course for us, and we asked him for some feedback, and the feedback was crap coffee. Right, that was it. On the feedback form was crap coffee. There was nothing about the quality of the course. There was nothing about whether the course could be improved, whether we learned anything. The only thing this guy felt the need to feedback was that the coffee was rubbish. So take on that on board. So we've got a local company that hand roasts coffee in Stratford, which will be the supplier. We're filtering all the water. We're using a lot of not recycled toilet products, but sustainable and eco-friendly toilet products. We're using an existing building. We'll probably go for 100% renewable energy. Phase 3 of the plan is to put a solar array on the roof with battery energy storage in there. We want to do that as well. We want to demonstrate that is viable. We've got we're a showcase for all sorts of interesting things. So we're actually speaking to a number of what I would call smaller cloud type providers that are using distributed cloud mentality. If you've got a solar panel array, you can buy one of their servers. The server sits in your house. They pay for the electricity. They pay you for the use of that. But it's connected into a wider mesh network and basically transfer a bit like the SETI project of old. So we can demonstrate that concept there as well. So, we want to be seen as a net zero innovation hub for the UK data center industry and beyond. We are hoping to make this international, that concept, and we want to support this industry, which is in an unprecedented period of growth with multiple challenges. And I think, I think there is a lot of wish lists out there for new facilities, and I don't necessarily think that those wish lists will be fulfilled. So I think there will be a bit of a tailing back, and maybe we need to do the radical rethink on both training and data center design and build operations. So one of the other things is we want to make sure that we want to show that there is different alternatives to the existing way of doing things. So really, this is a data center training academy for the 21st century, not a training provider that's providing you with 20th century views.
That's an excellent tagline out there, putting directly under the logo, right? So you've been talking about two type of people you'd want to reach out to. One of them telling you exactly what sort of trainings they want to see out there. The other one, probably people that have equipment on their hands that could donate or partner with you to use the equipment on the site. One thing we haven't done is to actually tell people how they can reach out to you. Do you want to take us through either website, email?
Yeah, so we've got a few bits and pieces administration wise that are in process at the moment, but that's the URL for the National Data Center Academy. It does need to be updated, so I would say don't go on there and don't look at it until kind of September-ish, once we've had a chance to update everything. It's all showing a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things to do. There's not many in the team at the moment. We are recruiting to get more people on board, so that's the main URL that you can go through for the website address. That kind of explains some of the concept. Yeah. And you can contact me on info@nationaldatacenter.academy. If you've got any queries, questions, or want to give us some, want to discuss giving us some kit or loaning us some kit in line with the design, that would be wonderful. And yeah, everything's, we want to be ready operationally for both the code of conduct room and the sandbox room by Q1 2025. But we know that there's some work that needs to be done. So this is actually going to be quite accelerated when you think about it. You know, we're signing a lease next week, and in 6 months' time, we want to be fully operational. So don't hold me to that date. It might slip a little bit depending on whether or not we get the donations of equipment. But as I said, you know, we've been talking about this for nearly 8 years now, and I mention it I think we've mentioned it Data Centers North, we've mentioned it Data Centers Island, we've mentioned it at Data Center Alliance events, I mentioned it at the World Group ESG events and the Data Center Dynamic events that I go to. So, you know, everybody who knows me knows that we have this training thing going on, and it's always been, you know, when it's ready, you know, we'll come and do stuff. So it's very close to being ready, guys. So get ready to come and do stuff.
That's fantastic, John. I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast today. What a wonderful project, and definitely something that is needed. I have no doubt that you will hear from the iMasons community on both your asks. But until then, I thank you again, and we hope to see you very soon.
Thank you, Roman, for the opportunity. You know, we've always been very supportive of the iMasons. We're on the sustainability committee, and we're moving the dial, I think, on energy efficiency, sustainability in this space, in the face of the unprecedented growth that we've got from AI and footprint around the world at the moment. And all that's, to me, that's just like, the more facilities we build, the more people we need to run them, which means the more people that I'm going to have to train. So I'm really pleased about that. And we're going to train them in the most energy efficient and sustainable manner as well. We want to embed that mindset in that, you know, the 20th century is in the past. It's a country now. We're in the 21st century. We have the world's climate emergency measures that need to be done. There's legislation coming through. Today's data center is not your father's data center. Yeah, everything's going to have to change. So we want to embed that mindset in them. And that's why we want the latest and greatest kit to be able to demonstrate to people, including some of the newer stuff like the immersed compute solutions and things like that. So yeah, and the future is bright, I think. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, John.